Have you ever noticed that right when things start going perfectly, something shifts? She's warm, she's engaged, she's laughing more, she texts first, she looks at you in that soft way that makes you think, okay, this is real. And then suddenly something changes. Her replies get shorter, her tone gets sharper. She teases you in a way that feels slightly pointed, or she pulls back just enough for you to feel it. And you start asking yourself the dangerous question, what did I do wrong? Here's the uncomfortable truth. You probably didn't do anything wrong. You just moved into the next stage. Most men believe attraction is a straight line. If things are going well, they should keep going well. If she likes you, she should just like you more. But attraction isn't a straight line. It moves in waves, and when the emotional high stabilizes, something else begins. Evaluation. Not because she's manipulative, not because she's playing games, but because the moment she starts caring, she also starts measuring. Is he emotionally steady? Does he crumble under pressure? Is his confidence real, or does it depend on how I treat him? If I lean back slightly, does he fall forward? This is the moment many men panic. They over-explain, they over-text, they try harder, and without realizing it, they shift from centered to seeking approval. But what if I told you that the shift you feel is not rejection? What if it's the first real sign that she's considering you seriously? Because women don't test men they don't care about. They test the ones they might invest in. And if you don't understand what's happening in this phase, you will sabotage something that was actually going very well. So let's talk about why she starts testing you right after things go well, and what that really says about you. When things start going well with a woman, most men relax. They feel the warmth, the attention, the consistency, and they assume stability has been achieved. They think, okay, she likes me, we're good now. But that's the illusion. Early attraction is not stability. It's momentum, it's chemistry, it's projection. It's two people enjoying how they make each other feel in the moment. There's excitement, novelty, emotional spikes, and as long as that spike is rising, everything feels effortless. But spikes don't last. Every emotional high eventually stabilizes. And when it stabilizes, the dynamic changes. Here's where most men misunderstand what's happening. When you feel things going well, you interpret it as confirmation. She likes me. I'm doing this right. I can ease off internally. I can settle. When she feels things going well, she interprets it as investment. This is becoming real. This could matter. And the moment something could matter, risk enters the picture. Risk of disappointment, risk of emotional instability, risk of attaching to someone who cannot hold his frame once comfort replaces excitement. This is the battlefield most men don't see. Attraction is emotional, not logical. In the beginning, emotions run on stimulation. After that, they run on security. And security is not proven when everything is smooth. Security is proven when there is slight friction. So when things go well, that doesn't mean the evaluation is over. It means the evaluation is about to begin on a deeper level. She's no longer asking, is he attractive? She's starting to ask, is he solid? And those are two very different questions. This is why the shift often feels confusing. Nothing dramatic happened. No argument, no mistake, just a subtle change in tone, behavior, or energy. But what actually happened is this. You moved from being a source of excitement to being a potential pillar. And pillars get tested, not because someone wants to break them, but because if you're going to lean on something, you need to know it can hold weight. The illusion of stability is believing that good emotions equal long-term security. They don't. Good emotions open the door. Stability is determined by what happens when those emotions fluctuate. And when they do, that's when the real dynamic begins. When things start going well, something subtle but powerful happens beneath the surface. Success creates comfort. Comfort creates emotional exposure. And emotional exposure creates vulnerability. That's where the testing begins. In the early stage, attraction is fueled by uncertainty. There's tension, there's mystery. Neither of you knows exactly where you stand. That uncertainty keeps emotions elevated. But once she feels that you like her, once she feels that this could actually turn into something meaningful, the dynamic shifts internally. Now she's no longer just enjoying the moment. She's evaluating the future. And evaluation doesn't happen when everything is easy. It happens when there's slight pressure. Think about it this way. When someone is just fun, there's nothing to lose. But when someone becomes important, the stakes increase. And when the stakes increase, the mind looks for information. Is he emotionally stable? If I pull back slightly, does he panic? If I challenge him, does he become defensive? If I disagree, does he lose composure? If I show a bit of distance, does he chase for reassurance? This isn't a conscious checklist she's reading from. Most of the time, it's subtle, almost instinctive. Success triggers testing because success signals potential investment. And investment requires safety. Not safety in the sense of kindness alone. Not safety in the sense of being agreeable. Emotional safety means this. Can she lean on your nervous system without it destabilizing? Can she express something slightly sharp without you collapsing into insecurity? Can she momentarily withdraw without you spiraling? The more she feels, the more she needs to know the ground is solid. This is why men get confused. They think, why would she create friction when things were perfect? Because perfection is fragile. Real stability is revealed under tension. If everything is smooth, anyone can appear confident. Anyone can appear calm. Anyone can appear secure. But introduce a small disruption, and suddenly the truth shows itself. That's what she's measuring. Not your dominance. Not your ability to win arguments. Not your willingness to control her. She's measuring emotional containment. Can you hold your center when her behavior shifts slightly? Because long-term attraction is not built on how you behave when she is warm and affirming. It's built on how you behave when she is uncertain, moody, testing, or distant. Success doesn't end evaluation. Success raises the stakes. And the higher the stakes, the more important it becomes for her to know that your strength isn't situational. It's internal. Once you understand that success raises the stakes, the next step is recognizing how the testing actually shows up. Because most men don't fail due to weakness. They fail because they misinterpret the situation. The first type is the micro-withdrawal. She becomes slightly less responsive. Her tone cools down just a bit. She takes longer to reply. Nothing dramatic, just enough for you to feel it. And that feeling is the point. She's watching what happens inside you. Do you stay grounded? Or does your energy shift immediately? The second type is the subtle challenge. She teases you, questions your opinion, pushes back on something you say, disagrees in a sharper tone than before. It's not disrespectful, but it's different. Many men interpret this as loss of attraction. In reality, it's often calibration. She's testing whether your confidence depends on her agreement. The third type is the boundary push. She cancels last minute, changes plans, becomes slightly inconsistent. Not repeatedly, not dramatically, just enough to see whether you abandon your standards to keep her approval. Do you over-accommodate? Do you instantly reschedule on her terms? Or do you calmly hold your own structure? Then there's the emotional provocation. She brings up something mildly sensitive, mentions another man casually, points out a flaw, makes a comment that feels slightly unfair. This is where most men lose composure, not because the comment is severe, but because it hits ego. Here's the important part. These behaviors are rarely strategic in a conscious way. She's not sitting there designing a psychological experiment. It's more instinctive than that. When emotions deepen, her nervous system looks for confirmation. And confirmation doesn't come from compliments. It comes from pressure. If a small shift in her behavior creates a large shift in yours, the message is clear. Your stability depends on her consistency, and that makes her feel unsafe investing further. But if you remain centered, light, calm, unreactive, the message is also clear. Your emotional state is self-sourced. It doesn't collapse when she moves slightly. Most men think the test is about dominance. It's not. It's about emotional gravity. Who regulates the emotional field when tension appears? And the moment you start chasing reassurance, explaining yourself excessively, or subtly seeking validation, you unintentionally answer the question she was asking. Not with your words, but with your nervous system. This is the point where most men collapse, and they don't even realize it's happening. Up until now, everything felt smooth, natural, effortless. So when her behavior shifts slightly, it feels like something has gone wrong. And the instinctive reaction is to fix it. He texts a little more, explains himself more clearly, tries to be extra understanding, extra patient, extra accommodating. He becomes slightly more careful with his words, slightly more attentive, slightly more invested. On the surface, it looks like effort. Underneath, it's anxiety. The problem isn't caring. The problem is the internal shift from centered to approval-seeking. The moment your emotional state starts depending on her reassurance, she feels it. And this is where attraction quietly starts to erode, because what she was testing wasn't your kindness. It wasn't your willingness to communicate. It was your emotional containment. Can you stay solid when there's a small disruption? Or do you immediately try to stabilize the situation externally? Most men think they fail because they weren't dominant enough, or because they didn't say the perfect line. That's not it. They fail because their nervous system reacts. They become slightly tense, slightly watchful, slightly eager to restore harmony. And that subtle tension communicates something powerful. I need this to go well. The moment she senses that you need the dynamic to stay smooth, the polarity shifts. Now she feels the weight of your emotional dependence, and no one wants to feel responsible for regulating another adult's internal stability. Here's the brutal irony. The more you try to fix the shift, the more you confirm that the shift affected you. And that is the information she was looking for. Over-explaining signals insecurity. Over-texting signals fear. Over-accommodating signals scarcity. Even subtle defensiveness signals fragility. None of this means you're weak. It means you're human. But attraction doesn't respond to intention. It responds to emotional signal. The test isn't about winning. It's about whether you remain the same man when conditions change. And most men unknowingly answer the test the wrong way because they're trying to pass it. They think stability means preventing friction, but real stability means not being disturbed by it. The collapse doesn't happen because she tested you. It happens because you reacted to the test instead of standing still within it. Now we need to go deeper, because if you only understand the surface level of this dynamic, you'll still take it personally. Attraction creates vulnerability, and vulnerability creates fear. When a woman feels real attraction, she doesn't just feel excitement, she also feels exposure. The more she likes you, the more she risks being hurt, disappointed, or destabilized. And the human nervous system does not like risk without reassurance. So what does it do? It looks for strength. Not loud strength, not performative dominance, emotional strength. This is the real psychological mechanism behind testing. When she begins to feel something meaningful, a subconscious question forms. Can I emotionally lean on this man without him collapsing? If I have a bad day, does he get thrown off? If I become moody, does he become insecure? If I express doubt, does he panic? The deeper the potential bond, the more important this answer becomes. This is not manipulation, it's calibration. From an attachment perspective, when closeness increases, so does the need for security. And security is not built through perfect harmony. It's built through surviving small ruptures without escalation. Every long-term relationship will contain friction, mood shifts, disagreements, stress, external pressure. The early tests are simply miniature versions of those future moments. She's not asking, can he impress me? She's asking, can he hold steady when I'm not perfectly regulated? Because if you cannot stay grounded during a slight withdrawal in the dating phase, what happens when real stress enters the relationship? What happens when life applies pressure? This is why the testing often increases right after intimacy deepens, after a great date, after a vulnerable conversation, after physical closeness. The emotional investment rises, and with it, the need for reassurance of stability. But here's the part most men never consider. She is not consciously trying to destabilize you. Her nervous system is simply searching for proof. Proof that your confidence is self-contained. Proof that your mood is not controlled by her fluctuations. Proof that you are emotionally bigger than the moment. And when you react strongly, what she feels is not power, it's weight. She feels that she now has to manage your reactions, that she must be careful not to upset you. And the moment she feels responsible for your emotional balance, attraction quietly decreases. The real mechanism is simple. The closer she feels, the more she needs to know that you can carry emotional weight. And emotional weight is not carried by intensity, it is carried by calm. Here's the counterintuitive truth. The worst thing you can do when she tests you is try to pass the test. The moment you recognize it as a test and internally think, okay, I need to handle this perfectly, you've already shifted out of your center. Now you're performing. Now you're managing the situation. Now you're subtly trying to control the outcome. And that energy is detectable. The strongest position is not strategic, it's natural. When she pulls back slightly, you don't lean forward. You also don't punish. You simply stay where you are. When she challenges you, you don't defend aggressively, and you don't fold. You respond calmly, maybe even playfully, and you remain unchanged. Unchanged is the key. Most men oscillate. When she's warm, they're warm. When she's distant, they become anxious. When she's enthusiastic, they feel powerful. When she's uncertain, they feel threatened. But emotional maturity means your baseline doesn't fluctuate with hers. That doesn't mean you become cold or detached. It means you are self-regulated. Your mood is internally sourced. Your confidence is not conditional. When she senses that, the test dissolves on its own. because the information she was looking for has already been revealed. She sees that your center is stable, that a minor disruption does not destabilize you, that you are not scrambling for reassurance. And paradoxically, the less you try to secure the dynamic, the more secure it feels to her. This is why over-effort kills attraction at this stage. Trying harder signals fear of loss, and fear of loss communicates that your stability depends on her presence. The real shift happens when you stop reacting emotionally to micro changes, when you allow fluctuations without interpreting them as threats, when you understand that tension is not danger. If she cancels once, you don't spiral. If she teases you, you don't defend your ego. If she becomes quieter for a day, you don't flood her with attention. You stay calm. You stay structured. You stay the same man you were before the shift. That consistency is what creates long-term attraction. Not intensity, not perfection, not constant reassurance. Calm gravity. And gravity doesn't chase. It simply holds. Now, we arrive at the uncomfortable part, because at some point, you have to stop analyzing her behavior and start examining your reaction. If her slight distance destabilizes you, what does that reveal? If one delayed reply changes your mood, if one sharp comment makes you defensive, if one cancelled plan triggers anxiety, was your stability ever real, or was it simply sustained by her validation? This is the brutal question most men avoid. Were you confident, or were you confident as long as she confirmed it? There is a difference between internal strength and conditional comfort. Conditional comfort feels powerful when everything goes well. Internal strength remains steady when things fluctuate. When she tests you, she is not creating your insecurity, she is exposing it. And that exposure is uncomfortable because it forces you to confront whether your emotional state is self-generated or externally regulated. Many men believe they are grounded until the woman they like shifts slightly. Then suddenly, their thoughts race, their behavior changes, their need for reassurance rises, and they call it love, or confusion, or mixed signals. But often, it's attachment anxiety disguised as concern. The real power move is not to control her behavior, it's to observe your own reaction without immediately trying to fix it. Why does her withdrawal feel threatening? Why does her teasing feel personal? Why does uncertainty feel intolerable? If your sense of worth tightens the moment she creates friction, then the test isn't the problem. The dependency is. And here's the paradox. The more you need her consistency to feel stable, the less stable you appear. But the moment you become emotionally self-contained, something shifts. You stop reading every small change as a verdict on your value. You stop chasing reassurance. You stop trying to prevent tension. You become steady. And steadiness is rare. Women don't test men to break them. They test to see if they break. If you don't, the dynamic deepens. If you do, the dynamic changes. The choice isn't about strategy. It's about who you are when the emotional weather shifts. So what would have changed everything? Not a better text, not a smarter response, not a perfectly timed joke. What would have changed everything is this: emotional non-urgency. Most men feel urgency the moment they sense distance. Urgency to fix, urgency to clarify, urgency to restore the previous warmth. And that urgency leaks into tone, timing, and behavior. But attraction at this stage doesn't need urgency. It needs steadiness. What would have changed everything is staying internally relaxed when she becomes slightly unpredictable. Letting a delayed reply be a delayed reply, letting a cancelled plan be just a cancelled plan, letting a sharp comment pass through you without needing immediate correction. Because when you don't rush to stabilize the dynamic, you communicate something powerful. I am not threatened by fluctuation. And that is deeply calming to the person on the other side. Most men think attraction is maintained by effort. In reality, it is maintained by emotional composure. When she senses that your energy doesn't spike the moment hers shifts, she relaxes. She doesn't feel like she's carrying your emotional balance. She doesn't feel like one wrong move will destabilize you. This is where many relationships silently succeed or fail. If every small tension turns into a mini crisis, the connection becomes exhausting. But if small tensions dissolve naturally because you don't overreact, the connection feels safe. What would have changed everything is understanding that a test is not a threat. It's an opportunity to demonstrate internal stability without announcing it. No speeches, no lectures, no dramatic boundary statements, just calm behavior that stays consistent. When you don't chase the warmth, warmth often returns on its own. When you don't defend against a mild challenge, the challenge softens. When you don't treat uncertainty as danger, uncertainty loses its edge. And suddenly, what felt like rejection reveals itself as evaluation. The irony is simple. The less you try to control the emotional climate, the more stable it becomes. Because true stability isn't created by preventing shifts. It's created by not being shaken when they happen.